Hello and welcome to Mindset and Muscles with Amanda. I am your host, Amanda Ferlisi. Welcome back, or welcome if you're just tuning in. I'm very excited for today's guest. I know everyone says that they're very excited for the guest, but Francine is very special to me. She just makes me feel so warm, fuzzy, and she's just real and honest. So, Francine Tirrell is the founder of Forever Changed Coaching. She is a mindset coach, energy healer, spiritual guide, and teacher dedicated to helping her clients reach their full potential and achieve their deepest desires. She incorporates spiritual teachings into her coaching practice, helping clients tap into their own intuition and connect with a higher power to achieve their goals. She offers individual coaching, group programs, retreats, speaking engagements, corporate training, and workshops. Francine, welcome to the podcast and thank you for joining us.
Yay, I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to hear all about it. So, Francine, just a little tidbit. Francine and I worked together for a few months last year, I believe,
Yeah.
and we got to know each other really well. And I want you guys to get to know Francine very well. So, Francine, tell us your story. Tell us how you came to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I don't know, probably about 12 years ago, I was looking for girlfriends. Like you get to a point in your life and you're like, where did all my friends go? So I found this women's group of amazing women. They met once a month and they always talked about some really cool topics. And it was run by coaches. And at the time, coaching wasn't the buzzword that it is today, right? Like, what is a coach? Right. And at the time, I was leading teams in corporate. So I thought, I'm a coach, right? And as I got to know these women more, I was like, oh, I want to do that. Right.
Mhm.
But, you know, it was a lot of money to invest in maybe like a hobby or a part time gig at the time because I had this story of I can't quit my day job to do this thing that I'd want to do. So I kept putting it off, putting it off. And then 10 years ago, a friend of mine's husband dropped dead of a heart attack. And it was kind of one of those wake up calls of like, how much longer do you keep putting things off? So as soon as the funeral was over, I called the school and I was just like, when does the next class start?
Mhm.
What's the financing? Get me in. And I did that. And at the same time, I was also getting trained in Reiki, energy healing. And then after I went to coaching school, I spent 4 years at the Reese Thomas School of Energy Healing as well, and then just finished teaching 4 years there. So over the last few years, I've been doing energy work and coaching, but still, a lot of it I was doing in a corporate environment, kind of on the DL, like
Mhm.
nobody knew I had crystals in my office, right? Like I was hiding that stuff. And then in 2019, I worked for a company that it was a startup that didn't quite start up. So in December of 2019, they basically closed down.
Mhm.
And then I like to say I manifested a pandemic because the universe was like, bitch, we need you to pay attention. Right.
Yes.
So in order for me to pay attention, they needed to shut the whole world down. So
Mhm.
in April of 2020, somebody reached out to me and was like, hey, are you coaching? And I was like, sure, because what the fuck else was I doing in April of 2020? Right?
But really?
Right. So I was like, all right, maybe I'll do this coaching thing finally. And that really was just kind of the kick in the ass that I needed because I really had this story of I can't leave my, health insurance and my six-figure salary and all the BS stuff that I
Mhm.
had. And I actually could. So I started in 2020, and then by 2021, I was like, all right, I guess we're really doing this. So I've really spent the last couple of years just teaching my clients the how trust and surrender really can help them have what they want. Because for me, that was a lot of what I had to do in the beginning and be like, am I really not going to do this corporate thing anymore? Am I really going to trust that I can make money at this and
Mhm.
that, the clients are going to show up and all the stories that we tell ourselves. And I had to work through a lot of my own mindset stuff.
Yep.
So with my clients, it doesn't necessarily mean I work with clients for a variety of different reasons, but all of it starts with themselves. I don't care what they want as an end result, but it's their relationship with themselves so that they can have what they want externally.
I mean, I got goosebumps when you mentioned I think you said your friend passed away. I'm so sorry
Yeah,
about that. And
thank you.
and I think that in itself sometimes, and then obviously when the world shut down, we have to reflect on ourselves because as I would say, like in this country specifically, we're go, 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 make as much money, doesn't matter if you're happy, and like you don't even let yourself feel like stress. Like you actually are super stressed, but you just keep moving forward. Even if you're like,
There's no
I want to do
time. Yeah.
yeah, you're like, I want to go do this, but I got to make all this money. I have to do health insurance. Like, we're all going to die. And that's what we tell ourselves. And it's crazy. And like the majority of people that I have on this show are entrepreneurs and they're like, I couldn't do it because of this. And just like you said, you have to trust and surrender. Please,
Hmm.
Francine, walk us through what trust and surrender means.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, I'll give you an example. In the beginning of COVID, I had a friend that had COVID in like March of 2020, right? So it was really scary. Now I'm out of a job. I've been out of a job since December. And we just, there was a lot going on. And one day I said to a friend, I had a ton of anxiety. And she was like, well, what are you anxious about? I said, well, I'm afraid my friend's going to die and my
Mhm.
husband's going to lose his job. And she said, so what? And I was like, oh, she's right, right? Because like, I had no control over either of those. Like, I refer
Nope.
to myself as a control freak in recovery. So, really learning how to let go of
Yes.
that, right? Because I was planning, right? Well, if my friend dies, will they know to call me? Will her kids call me? Do they have my phone number? Will they get it out of her phone? Right? Like I was literally planning how I was going to find out. My friend didn't die. She was fine. My husband didn't lose his job. In fact, a few months later, he actually got a job that he is much happier at,
Mm-hmm.
right? But the surrender piece was really just whatever happened, right? Me losing my six-figure job 3 months before a pandemic happened, I had to trust that that was for my highest and best good,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that I was going to be okay. And every time I start to get a little, "Oh, where's that next client coming from?" Or, "Am I doing the right thing?" Right? I have to trust that no matter what happens, it is for my highest and best good. Right? Because so often we think bad things, right? And I'm air quoting
Mm-hmm.
for people who are just listening and not watching, right?
Mm-hmm.
That things that are bad are like we label things that are bad. Me losing my job was one of the best things that ever happened to me, right? It allowed me to be grateful. I would still be in corporate if that didn't happen,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I wouldn't be happy. So trusting that there is no good or bad, there is no right or wrong, and that everything is happening for us and not to us.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes practice.
Like you can't see obviously because I also don't know why this is like super like smooth looking, but
Right.
I have goosebumps because what you're saying is I lived the majority of my life super stressed, super anxious, but not even also fully aware of it, and just like letting go of the things that you can't control. Like you cannot control what happens with your husband's job in life. Like you can't control it. You can give like advice, like what have you, but it's literally out of your control. And I think as a whole, especially women, especially like type A women, we want to be in control of everything, but we just can't fucking do it. Like you can't let it
And
go.
it's an illusion. Control is a fucking illusion. Like we actually aren't, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. The only thing that, and I even hate to use the word control, that we have control over is our response to a situation.
Yes.
We can't actually control the situation. And the only thing that we should be focused on is the right here, right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because we can't change what just happened,
Mm-hmm.
and we have no control over the what might happen. And we so often don't live in this present moment. And that's the only thing that matters is the right
Yes.
here, right now. So often when I am feeling the anxiety or something's coming up, what I will say to myself, my mantra over the last couple of years is right here, right now, I'm okay. Right here, right now, I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I'm in the what if, what do I need to do? What happens? It's none of that is real. It
Mm-hmm.
really is just the right here, right now.
Now, Francine, this is phenomenal advice. I hope people out there aren't like eye rolling because I probably would have eye rolled maybe like 7 years ago because I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't be that way. I need to be perfect. I need to do all of these things. Remember what happened here or what could happen? It's like, shut it off. And I love that you mentioned that. I actually had a question about, I know we spoke about this. I don't know if you remember, and I was like, I'm having pain here. And you're like, let's look this up.
Yeah,
So, my question to you, because also I hesitate because it's something I can't see. Like it's almost not real, but it is. Can you tell the audience and reiterate to me what you spoke about? I think it was like holding energy in the Can you explain that,
sure.
please?
Yeah. So energy is everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere around us. And dis-ease is what energy healing work works on, right? Because when we have dis-ease in our body, that is just usually stuck energy.
Mm-hmm.
So healing work helps move that energy. And when we have pain in our body, let's just use the pain, right? All of our body, different parts of our body represent different things, right? I'm going to use myself as an example.
Mm-hmm.
And you know this, right? Because you were my trainer. I have hip and knee issues, right? So that's like hip is moving forward, right? And then the right side of your body is the masculine energy. The left side is the feminine energy. So when you know, and there are charts that you can find that tell you
Mm-hmm.
every part of your body is attached to an emotional component. And the Louise Hay book, You Can Heal Your Life, is a great resource. And it tells you, like, if you go to it and you look up certain things, you're like, oh my God, that's exactly what I'm going through. Because
Mm-hmm.
your body gives you messages because we are so busy, we don't pay attention. And
Mm-hmm.
the universe is like, hey, pay attention. Here's a little tap. Oh, you don't want to hear that? Okay, I'm going to nudge you. All right, we're
Yep.
knocking you down for the count.
Yes.
Right? So if we can start paying attention to the little nudges, the little messages, we actually can heal ourselves. And when, lungs are grief, right? So when I hear people like somebody who gets a lot of pneumonias or has lung issues, right? How much grief do they have in their body? Right? How many or in their life? How much grief have they had? And if they're not releasing the grief, if they're holding on to it, it stores in your body. But if you're doing things like yelling, crying, screaming, kicking, journaling, meditating, and doing the things to work through that grief, you end up releasing it. But when we hold on to it, it
Mm-hmm.
does settle, for lack of a better word, in
Yes.
places in our body.
And it festers. And I like, so you weren't the first person that mentioned that to me, actually. You
But I was
actually
the one that you listened
you
to.
I listened to you because a few reasons. I very much trust you and I trust your professional opinion and your advice. I also heard this from a physical therapist because Francine knows we were just talking about this. I like essentially threw out my back last week because like as much as I try to be very aware and, you know, giving myself grace and certain things, like my body holds a lot of emotional stress, and that's just how I've been since I've been a little kid. And you weren't, like I said, you weren't the first person to bring it up, but when you brought up certain things that I was struggling with, I was like, I looked at her and I was like, what kind of voodoo magic are you doing right now? Because I'm like, yes, yeah, actually that is. And then I would go home, I call my mom, like, Ma, listen, Francine told me this, and she's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, see, you don't get it. But it is true. Like, just as another example, I was getting a massage this morning because I get massages almost weekly. She was on my neck at one point, and my whole like certain like traumas that I went through that I still continuously work through were flashing in front of my eyes. I'm like, we're still here. We're still doing this on my left part of my neck. Why are we still here? But what I did was I breathed through it and I realized that like it's not as bad as it used to. But again, it circled back to I knew I was going to see you today. And I'm like, here we are. Got a pain in my neck. It's the same freaking thing.
Thing.
But it's true. We hold all these energies in our body and no one really talks about it. And I feel like I don't know if it's generational. People eye roll about it. But again, I would have eye rolled about that 10 years ago. But it's true. We hold all this. So my question to you is, do you work with the clients that you bring in and you work with? Do you talk about like energy and do you help them work through this?
I do. And, and some of them it's new to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to do it in a way of like, well, where do you feel that in your body? And they're like, oh, I feel that in my stomach or I feel that here. Okay. And then we will, maybe I'll have them put their hand there and I might do a meditation or we'll do some breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And the more they learn about it, the more interested. Like I have clients at different levels. Some are all in on energy work and they understand, and others it's new to them. So I do I call myself, like you introduced me as, I'm a coach. I'm a spiritual teacher because I do combine both, right? Because coaching is its own type of modality, but I do it in a unique way of really wanting people to shift
Mm-hmm.
their energy around it. And I do incorporate energy healing work when I do some coaching, because coaching is moving some deep stuff. And sometimes coaching can be more cerebral. And I don't want them to be cerebral, because your brain will let's hey, if people take nothing else away from this podcast, your brain will lie to you 1,000,000% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
1,000,000%. The truth lies within your soul, within your heart, right? So I move my clients from the messages in their brain into listening to their body more, listening to their soul, listening to their heart, because your brain will lie to you all the time.
I I say the same thing about when clients are like, I can't do that. Or it's like, you can. Your body, your brain, and your mind will give up before your body gives out. So I'm so happy that you mentioned that, because it's true. And we feed ourselves with these thoughts and these negative feelings and emotions. It's like, I can't do that squat. I hurt my knee 17 years ago. Okay. How did you work past that? But I'm so happy that you brought that up. My other question is, so, obviously you lost your job because the startup company failed. In that time frame of you going from December 2000, and I think you said 19, to
19,
April
yeah.
2020, can you talk about the wave of emotions that you went through and how you used your own what you preach to others, how you did
Yeah.
that on yourself?
Yeah. So I wanted to go back. I want to say, when you talked about today, like having that massage,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, I can't believe we're here again. I don't believe that our triggers ever really go away. We just learn to they show up differently,
Mm-hmm.
and we learn how to respond differently to them. So during that time, because I have been doing 10 plus years of this work, right? I knew that whatever was happening for my highest and best good. Now, there were days, even before COVID hit, where I was like, shit,
Yep.
what am I going to do? Right. And I was panicked. I need a job, blah, blah, blah. And when that would happen, I would actually just take pause, and I would just sit with, okay, well, what am I feeling right now? I'm feeling scared,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm worried. And then I would be like, "Okay, well, what is that?" Right? So I would kinda coach myself, which I
Mm-hmm.
don't recommend, right? You need support, you need others, and I had friends that are coaches, so
Of
I would work
course.
with people, but it was also, like, sitting with allowing myself to actually feel the feelings, because, again, as somebody who lived 50 plus years in a cerebral brain, I didn't allow myself to feel the feelings. I didn't allow myself to feel scared or worried, because we are too I don't have time. I don't have time to feel this,
No
because I got
time.
shit to do, right?
Yeah.
I got shit to
I need my
do.
money. I need my health insurance. Like,
Right.
we're not going to make it to tomorrow.
People need me, right? I'm all about, I'm here for you. I don't have time for I used to say, if somebody dies, I'm the person you want, because I'm the girl with the clipboard taking charge while everyone else is falling apart. I will fall apart for the 5 minutes when nobody's watching and I'm not taking care of anyone. But for me, I've had to learn to actually embrace and feel those feelings, because that
Mhm.
is the only way you're going to move forward, is if you actually allow yourself to feel. So in those days and times when I was feeling, like the day I was nervous, and my friend said, "Well, what are you worried about?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm worried about all this stuff."
Yeah.
I allowed myself to feel worried, but then I had to be like, "Oh, yeah, there is nothing I can do about that." So the worry, all it did was keep me out of the present moment. So when I can stop worrying, it brings me back to present.
I mean, I love everything you say, obviously. It's a lot. And I think, and I meet with several clients every day, every week, month, and a lot of them struggle with things that they would benefit by just stop focusing so much on the past, stop worrying about something that you literally can't control. And like you were asking me, my wedding's coming up. I can't worry about it because everything's going to fall into place however it falls into place. It's going to be beautiful and I have my person, right? And I feel like it takes a lot. a lot of practice to get to that point because again, I may not have been doing this for very long as far as like the positive work, the mindset shifting and the all of that. I haven't been doing that long. So I can only imagine, but I just okay, so this is I'm getting to the question. So what do you do with a client that say I'm going to give it hypothetical, someone in their late 60s and they're struggling and they want to start a career because they're so unhappy or what have you. How do you walk them through starting? Because again, I feel like when you're 60 or older, you're kind of like I'm set in my ways, not going to budge.
There are people in their 30s and 40s that are also that set too.
I can imagine. I can imagine. You know what? I'm just really thinking about my parents, honestly. I love them
Nice.
to death, but they're very much stuck in whatever they do always. Love you guys. But how would
So I
you
don't even think it has to do about age. So we'll take the age out of it,
take it
right?
out?
So the stuckness is really getting to the root of what that is.
Hmm.
So often it's about the beliefs that they have. And those are their limiting beliefs. Those are the assumptions that they've had. They're also the gremlin, like their inner voice that's telling them, "You're stupid. You can't do that.
Hmm.
Why would you even think that you should apply for that job?" Or you assume, "Well, I'm not going to get that job because I didn't get the last job." Right? Or you have, limiting beliefs. Well, I can't get the job because I don't have 4 years of experience and I don't have a college degree and my hair isn't purple, whatever it is, right? We have these stories that we tell ourselves. And I keep coming back to people and I say, well, where's the evidence of it?
Hmm.
Where's the evidence? Right? Because the evidence is the story you're telling yourself. There's actually no evidence. Right. So I had a conversation with somebody earlier today and she was talking about a situation in work and I kept saying to her, is there evidence that that's true? Right? Because there's what we think is true and what is the truth, and they're two different things,
Yep.
right? Like the sky is blue. That's true,
Hmm.
right? It might rain tomorrow. It's going to rain tomorrow. There's no evidence of that, right? There won't be evidence until it actually happens.
Yes.
Right? So we create stories based on our experience and and our responses are based on how we show up, and the stories that we create are based on our history. And if we're not willing to let go of that and be open to the possibility, that's where we're stuck. And that's where we spin. I do a lot of date and relationship coaching. And so often I hear all men this, all women that. And I'm like, really? All of them?
Wow,
Like
that's a lot of
every single
people.
one out there? That's a lot of people.
I'm so happy you brought up dating coach. I always got such a Can you tell us any recent, I know obviously you can't, don't ever say names, but like
Right, right.
okay, what do you use currently? So like you work with mindset coaching. How does that help and translate when you're talking to setting people up and matchmaker? How does that translate and what advice would you give to people?
Yeah, I have a great example. I had a woman, she's I think in her early 60s, very young, very,
Mhm.
still works the whole bit. And she was really stuck on age is a big thing for people. Age is really people have a first off, everyone thinks no one their age is as young or as active as they are.
Mhm.
So everybody wants to date younger. It doesn't matter if they're men or women. They don't believe anyone their age is as young and as active as them. So this woman, same thing. So she was working with a matchmaker, and her matchmaker presented a match to her, and the gentleman was 10 years older. So he was in his 70s.
Mhm.
And she said the only reason she said yes to the date was because of the work that we did. And she knew she had been judgy. And they went out. And the last time I worked with her, they were planning, I think, their third date. And he was taking her bike riding and things she had never done.
Mhm.
Like he was giving her experiences. And she's like, I would never have gone out with him if we weren't working together because my stories would have told me I can't possibly go out with somebody who's 10 years older than me. So it allowed her possibility and possibly even happiness
Yes, I
because she
feel
was
like
willing to let go of that.
yeah, I feel like we hold ourselves back from happiness a lot. And maybe not everybody. I know that I was a Oh, you can't be happy? Like, what is that? I don't know, and that's obviously environmental, like, how you grew up and all of that. Like, I had a great upbringing, some bumps along the road, but it's like, "Oh, you can't be happy for too long, the other shoe's gonna
The
fall." Is that
shoe's
what it
gonna drop,
is?
right.
Like,
Yeah.
I what do you find that a lot with your clients and people around you that they
I
they
have a
feel like they can't be happy?
Yeah, I have a great example of a woman because I know you said a lot of your clients are entrepreneurs. So I had a client, we've been working together for a while, but when she first came to me, she was in corporate,
Mhm,
miserable, burnt out, not a great mom at the time, not a great wife, exhausted, but she had the money story, and that came from her childhood, right? Like
mhm,
she came from lack. She really didn't come from lack, but there were stories around it. So she couldn't quit her job because blah blah blah. Well, she quit her job and they asked her to stay. And then she quit again. And when she quit the second time, they said, "Well, what do you want?" And she said, "I want to be a consultant for you and work part-time." And they said, "Okay." That was a year ago. That was in January of 2022, so a year and a half ago. She started working. She did one consultant job for that company. So in the last year and a half, she has now gone out on her own and has been a consultant on her own. And that really was her learning to trust. And she's this woman has done some amazing work because she has really embraced her spiritual side and she meditates more and she really has learned how to trust. But that really is shifting those old stories because she had so many of them around the
mhm.
money piece. And for the last year and a half, started her own business, right? And is beyond she ran the New York Marathon
Yep.
last year, right? Like she has done so much because she stopped the stories.
I love that. Do you believe it's more important to stay in a job that pays you 6, 7 figures and you're moderately to kind of more on the unhappy side, or get paid $25,000 a year starting, right? And you're happy as a clam. What do you think is more important?
I think that's an individual decision because I think um, we all have choice. And that's a different answer for each person. So the six-figure job might be a choice to stay in it temporarily
Hmm.
until you can do whatever. You can only each one of us can only make that decision for ourselves. I have a little card here. Can I read it? Because this will be
Yes.
good for everyone. It says everything I do is a choice, so I'm in control of my own reality. The
Perfect.
thoughts I choose to believe right now are forming my experiences. I now listen to what I say and do not say anything that I do not want to become true for me. So whether you choose the $25,000 job or the $250,000 job, it is your choice.
Hmm.
And then you don't get to. So here's the thing, choose what you want, but then you don't get to fucking complain about it
Yes.
because it's not a powerful choice,
You get
right?
to
If you
choose it.
want
You're
the,
choosing your
right.
happiness.
Exactly. So I had a coach when I first started out. I was a really challenging client many years ago, and I was in a miserable job. And she said, "Act as if you're in the job you want." And I was like, "I don't know how to do that." And then
Hmm.
I did. I started acting like, "Okay, this is light. This is fun. This is where I still left that job, but I didn't complain about it as much because I was still there. So I had to make the best out of it. And I got to choose what to do.
I think that what you just read was super powerful because we have the choice to make the path, to create the path that we want. Obviously, there's going to be bumps, all these things that need to also happen, but you can still choose what you want to do. You can
Right.
be happy, but if you're choosing to be in a position that brings you severe like unhappiness, anxiety, like that's your choice. And I love that you
Right.
say that because a lot of us are like, not, I would say some people play a victim, but also I would say like it's okay to get out of that feeling because I feel like people get comfortable in any situation.
Well, and here's the thing, and this is where coaching is so powerful. Sometimes when you're so stuck in that victim, because victim was the word I was going to say too, when you're stuck in that victim place, you actually can't see beyond it. And that's where coaching comes in, right?
Hmm.
Because it is the opportunity because I help shift your perspective, right? Like,
Hmm.
so Tell me, what are some options? I don't know. There aren't any. There aren't. And people believe because that is all they can see because have blinders on. The work that I do with my clients are taking those blinders down so we can see other possibilities. What else is possible? And the stories that are attached to that victim place, right? Because they do have, you know, I have to work this job because I have to pay the bills and this is the only way I can do it. And what if blah, 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 blah. But when we start looking at things a little differently, we can start acting a little differently and choosing differently. But sometimes you can't see beyond the mess that you're in.
Francine, I usually end on leave like some piece of advice, but what you just read was so riveting. And if people should like right now, if you're listening, go back and listen to what Francine read again because it was very powerful. Francine, this has been such a pleasure reconnecting with you. I
Yes,
hope
ditto.
some of you people are watching and you can see how happy Francine is and myself because the energy that I get from Francine in general. Francine, can you let us know where we can contact you and reach you?
Absolutely. My website is Forever Changed Coaching. I'm on Instagram at Forever Changed Coach. I have a Facebook group called She Got Out of Her Own Way because I believe we are the only thing stopping us from having what we want. And I have a Facebook page, Forever Changed Coach. I
Awesome.
think that's where else can you? I think that's it, right?
I'll relook at that again and I'm gonna put all of that information below. So if you want to contact Francine as you should, you can contact her on those outlets. Francine, thank you so much for being
Thank
part of
you.
my podcast. I had such a great time. Lots of goosebumps, lots of good feelings, and the positivity is just like I hate the word oozing, but that's the first thing that came to my mind. Positivity is like oozing out of this. And I thank you so much, Francine. And
Thank
I
you. So
thanks.
fun.
I hope that you all enjoyed the podcast and have a great morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are.